Hello, everybody. A quick announcement. If you want a real juicy entertainment business story, fast forward to about 38 minutes into the podcast where I talk about people that I met at the YouTube space. Just to give you some context, that's where the real juicy bit starts. Otherwise, listen from the front to hear about what I've been up to and about worm farming and about other cool stuff before you hit the juicy entertainment business story. I hope everybody is doing well. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and here we go. Hello, everybody. John Fulford here. I hope you're doing great. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. This is an audio-only podcast, even though if you've been following me, I set up my video studio, but all plans go to waste or whatever that saying is because I can't get the audio and video to sync correctly, even though it was syncing correctly at my other crib. Now at this new video studio, it's not syncing correctly, so I'm doing this audio only for you gearheads. I'm using a Shure SM58 into my UAD Apollo. You might hear some creaking and some reverb because the floor of my recording studio is, I think it's laminate. I'm renting this place, so it's laminate. It's not carpet. So you might hear a little bit of echo if you're listening to this loudly. Otherwise, we are good to go. As you might have seen from the title of this episode, I am not quitting YouTube. I am not quitting podcasting, ... yet. The reason I got into making YouTube videos was back in LA, there was a YouTube space to where if you had 10,000 YouTube subscribers, you could utilize the YouTube space free of charge. So the goal was to build up enough subscribers to start utilizing the YouTube space. But in this new content landscape, YouTube sent out a very nice euphemistic, get it, YouTube, euphemistic letter to all the creators saying that the YouTube space will no longer be available to creators, which, I mean, it's their space. They discontinued it. They didn't even have to have it open for one day, let alone the number of years they had it open. So I'm not complaining in any way, shape, form, fashion, or function. I'm just saying the main reason for the channel was to build it into something bigger. And now I'm not even in Los Angeles, and there's no more YouTube space. So a lot of creators, if you've seen, are also getting kind of burnt out, and they're stopping their channels. They're shutting down their podcasts. Which I think would have happened anyway, but the pandemic just accelerated it, right? The pandemic accelerated everything in this decentralized content market, which I am a little excited about, to be fair. This new decentralized content market is pretty cool. I did a whole video podcast about it, which it didn't sync with audio, so I just scrapped it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the entertainment business compared to the worm business. And I'm going to give a shout out to everyone at my gym that I work out at several hours a week. One of the main reasons I'm doing this episode is so I could jibber jabber into a microphone so that when I go to the gym, I'm more focused on my weights and less about jibber jabbering. You know, someone comes in, asks me about music, and they get a 10-minute answer. Then someone else comes in and asks me about worms. They want me to go, oh, yeah, it's going great. Thank you. How are you? But I give a 10-minute diatribe about African night crawlers and how they differ from European and Canadian night crawlers, the details of which I will probably share with you at several points during this episode and subsequent episodes. Worm farming is my new hobby, and I've made a business out of it. I have several customers already, so we'll get into that and how it differs from the entertainment business. But first, I want to discuss the decentralized content creation marketplace and how it will affect you, okay? Now, for all of my industry people, and I can't thank the industry people enough for listening to this. I've been getting emails saying that y'all listen. I didn't even know y'all listen to this, so I want to get y'all's opinion, and we're all in this together. You know, a lot of people have not really an adversarial thought between licensors and licensees, but it's kind of like the buyers and sellers, but we're all in this together, okay? As one gentleman said on a panel like a dozen years ago, it's not like quote unquote TV shows competing against each other. It's TV shows compete like for ratings. It's TV shows competing against video games, competing against phone apps, competing against live concerts, and the word competing isn't really the right word, but you know what I'm saying, right? Because right now, people aren't deciding whether to watch TV show A over TV show B, especially because it's probably available on demand. They're deciding whether to watch TV show A or just play on their phone. Now, that's what I want to talk about. So, decentralized content marketplace. Back in the days when I was working at Echo Beach Studios in Jupiter, Florida, look it up. There were several people that would come in and out of the studio, and they were putting together some sort of pitch to pitch people in New York or LA their project. They would do a demo reel, they would do some sort of demo, and they'd be lucky enough to fly to New York, to fly to Los Angeles and have the big meeting, right, with the suits, quote unquote. They go up to the conference room, they'd sit and present their idea. 499 times out of 500, the deal wouldn't go through. It would get rejected, a polite decline of the deal. But that 1 out of 500, that's how you get a pilot, right? That's how you get on, quote unquote. That's how you get put on, right? That was when content was centralized. There was only a handful of radio stations and a handful of television stations, and then films, a handful of film studios, and then it was live shows, theater groups, and community things like that. But for the most part, for national and international content, it was a few people or entities that dictated whether your content got distributed. Contrast that with today, where you could download any myriad of apps, right, applications on your phone, and your phone, depending on how new it is, could shoot 4K video. 4K video on your phone, and you could upload it to any of these apps, and now guess what? Your content is distributed pretty much worldwide. Yes, there are some apps that are not available in some countries. I get it, but for the most part, your content is available worldwide, and even further, you could sell ads against it on YouTube. For the most part, I know if you're doing some types of videos that you can't, but if you just want to host a show about food, for instance, you could do that yourself, and YouTube will sell ads against your videos, and you get a cut. Speaking of which, if you're listening to this through Apple Podcast or through my Disco link, listen to it on YouTube so I get a piece of the ad rev, okay? Or if you're a music supervisor, license my music or hire me for a gig, hire us, license our music, and we'll call it even, okay? Thank you very much, thank you. So, decentralized content. Here is my example. A show like Breaking Bad, right, where it's kind of, they got some special effects, but nothing like Game of Thrones, right? They don't have giant dragons and stuff, but it's not like a show with one set piece, okay? Like a video podcast or 1 or 2 cameras. It's a fictional portrayal where they have shootouts and they have different scenes and things like that. Could cost around $6 million an episode to produce. You have a 12-episode season, it might come out to $75 million a season to produce. Okay? So let's just take one episode, $6 million. And you're sitting there and you're watching your $6 million episode. It costs $6 million to produce, and you're sitting there on your $1,000 TV set that you bought as the customer, and you're paying $20 a month for Netflix or Amazon, whatever, and you're watching an episode that costs $6 million to produce. Okay? And a lot of these things, they just don't do one episode. They do a season. So they're invested high 8 figures to get this season on the air, okay? And you got your college-aged family member, son, daughter, niece, nephew, whatever, sit next to you on the couch. And you look over, and they're on their phone watching Miranda Cooper, look her up, on TikTok, dance around in her pajamas. So instead of watching the content that costs $6 million to produce for an episode, they're watching a TikTok that, aside from their phone, which they would have bought anyway, right, to text their friends and stuff, the app TikTok costs nothing. Miranda Cooper has a phone anyway, started dancing in her pajamas. That costs her nothing. She uploads it to the app. They don't charge her to upload it. They don't charge your family member to watch it. It's I don't want to say it's free, that's the wrong word, but it didn't cost millions of dollars or any dollars to produce. Now, when you open the TikTok app, what do you see? Before I would watch a TikTok video, anytime I opened the app, I would see an ad. Recently, it was an ad for American Idol. Katy Perry was on the ad, clips of her on American Idol. So they're trying to bring people off of TikTok to watch television. TikTok doesn't really have to run ads on television trying to get you to watch TikTok. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's decentralized content. Miranda Cooper didn't have to go to New York or LA and, talk to the executives to get any kind of content on. She just uploaded herself. You see what I'm saying? But if you're doing a show where you got to fly to different countries and there's different sets, that's where the more centralized content comes in. The TV networks, the streaming networks, that's what they do. But now they're competing against people who just have a phone, and engage in content, right? Like there's also a lady, I don't think she's in the Antarctic. I think she's in the Arctic. She lives up there with her family. They're like indigenous to the Arctic region. And she takes TikToks of her fishing and cleaning fish and living off the land up there. How could you do that? Like, how could she get a show if she had to go to New York or LA and pitch a show? You know how difficult that would be? She doesn't have to leave her community. She could use her phone, which probably her specific phone, I would bet, shoots the 4K video and very sharp pictures, still photography. And now she has a worldwide audience. Now, if they want to do a more higher budget production with maybe they take a commercial fishing boat into the Arctic and all this stuff, then that's where the centralized content people could come in. That's where the networks will come in and the streaming services, things like that could come in. Or TikTok might just send a crew out and pay for all that stuff because she's getting enough views. They do their algorithm and say, well, a lot of people are watching this family in the Arctic, and we're selling a lot of ads, on the app, and this is a big part of it. So let's kick in X amount of dollars to make even bigger. I don't want to say better because better is relative, right? That Zapruder film when President Kennedy was unfortunately gunned down in Dallas, that wasn't a very good piece of video, was it? It was all grainy and shaky, but look how important it is. Content is king. Right? How engaging is that video? People want to watch it as opposed to a super sharp, fully produced 8K, red camera shoot of grass growing. Right? Content is king. You feel what I'm saying? Content is king. And that's scary. I'm going to talk to my music composers for a second. That's scary for a lot of y'all. Because it used to be you could kind of dabble in music and kind of like do your music. And then when someone says, hey, Jim, how's the music going? I can't get anywhere. I keep getting rejected by these networks. But now you can't even say that because you can make your own network, right? You can make your own network. You give guitar lessons. Anyone that's giving guitar lessons and they can't find people to give lessons to, go on YouTube and give lessons to the world. Right? Give lessons to the world. They don't pay, but you get paid from Google AdWords. And you don't even have to leave your house. See what I'm saying? It's decentralized. You don't got to give guitar lessons one kid at a time, coughing on you, giving you COVID. One kid at a time, one. You give it to everybody from where you want to do it. Your house, your studio, wherever, right? You could even be audio only. You don't even have to have video because it's guitar lessons. Now, if it's photography, you really should have, you don't need video for photography. You could give still pictures, right? I saw a really cool video on YouTube where the B-roll was photos. And think about it. You could get a lot of high-res photos with a DSLR camera. And they look pretty sharp. It's not video, but it's photos. But you could use those as B-roll with a voiceover, and you're golden. You see what I'm saying? What would someone rather see? Boring stock footage of the Eiffel Tower. All right, yeah, okay, cool. Or some really cool, unique photos of the Eiffel Tower with a cool voiceover leading in to your A-roll footage. See, it's decentralized, which I think is really cool, but it's always been the Wild West. I remember I was at a panel and the esteemed PJ Bloom was on the panel, and this was when I first moved to LA, and he said the entertainment business is like the Wild West because it's always changing. There's always new opportunities, and a lot of the opportunities go by the wayside and new opportunities come in. And I was very nervous about that. But the more I was in the entertainment business, the more that's kind of cool because there's always new things that play to your strengths, and there's also new things that play to your weaknesses, but you don't need to do it. Do you see me doing dances on TikTok? I hope not, because that's not my strength. But I could jibber jabber into this microphone for a few minutes, which y'all seem to engage with, which I am happy for, because I give my little spin on things. Also, recently, I have quit social media. I can't do it anymore, people. So here's the plan with social media with me. I send out about 1 or 2 tweets a week because I do go on Twitter to see how all my buddies are doing, landing big fat artist cuts and sync licenses and stuff like that. So I don't do Facebook. I don't do Instagram. I don't do Snapchat. I still have my accounts that are up and running. I will check in with them probably twice a year, once in the summertime around my birthday, once around the holidays, and I'm thinking I'm going to do a content dump, which kind of sounds, it's like a double entendre, right? I'm thinking of doing like a bunch of photos and some videos like or in the summer, and then a bunch of photos and videos around the holidays because it's hard to post one thing. If you haven't posted, because people want to know what's going on, especially because of COVID. I haven't seen a lot of people in years. You know what I'm saying? Now. So that's the plan. I just found myself like, what am I doing? I'm going to the gym with a DSLR camera to lift weights. And it's more of a progress to see how, like, I used to post to Instagram so I could look back at the different dates and see how I've been progressing, and then other people could see it as well. But why do I need to do that? Let me focus on my weights instead of worrying about a camera. Hey, can you hold the camera? Ooh, do you want a video of you? Okay, taking a video. Now it turns into a video production. There's a gentleman at the gym that took a gold medal in the Olympics in 1988. And I'm walking into the gym with more camera power than what was on him when he won his gold medal. That ain't right. Like, what am I doing? And do you think he goes with a camera wanting to record himself? No. Which gold medalist is it? I'm not going to tell you. There's a couple gold medalists that go to the gym. One I don't think goes anymore. One goes on an ongoing basis. But anyway, yeah, so I just stopped doing it. And I knew I made the right decision when someone hit me up on the phone, text message, and said, have you heard about Mr. Potato Head? Now let me stop you right there. I hope Mr. Potato Head is doing well. I hope he didn't Me Too Mrs. Potato Head. I don't give a shit about Mr. Potato Head. I hope he's okay. But I'm sure if I was on social media, I'd know all about whatever happened, the Potato Head saga. I hope he didn't get into a fight with Mrs. Potato Head and they started detaching each other's eyeballs and mouths and nose. I don't know. Was Mr. Potato Head at the insurrection in January? I don't know. I don't care. It's a toy. It's an inanimate object. In what universe does someone, like, what if you thought that before social media started? Hey, have you heard about Mr. Potato Head? Mr. Potato Head isn't real, okay? That's what I'm talking about. But I know if I was on Facebook and Instagram, I'd hear all about the Mr. Potato Head saga in gruesome detail. I hope he didn't accidentally slip and fall into a chipper and become a McDonald's French fry. That'd be really weird, okay? I don't know nothing. I mean, are they like limited edition now? Or is there an NFT Mr. Potato Head now? I got to pay $800 for a picture of Mr. Potato Head, which I don't actually own. That's a whole other saga. Can we make this podcast an NFT? Can I make this episode an NFT? Let me digress and talk about NFTs. So, I heard from a PhD student here that you could start securitizing NFTs, which means, now this is something that has me really excited. Say I put out an album, Future Bass Volume 83, and then I put out an accompanying NFT, which is securitized against the earnings of Future Bass Volume 83. So if Future Bass Volume 83 lands some sync licenses, it lands some performing royalties, some international sub-publishing checks. It lands on Spotify, whatever. And then the associated NFT token would rise in value in two ways. One, based on the actual value of the album, and then two, the collectible value, meaning if the album landed a sync license on some show that's like a new show that doesn't really have a lot of buzz, the token will go up based on the money. But if it lands a sync on like a Marvel Comics movie that has a big PR buzz, people want to buy the token because they own a piece of a song that ended up on a Marvel Comics movie. Do you see the difference? There's like a collectible value associated with it, kind of like gold coins. Like gold coins have a value of their worth in gold, and then of the rareness of the coin, kind of like a watch. Like a gold watch has a melt value, like how much is it worth in gold, and then how much is it worth in rarity, and is it called numismatic value? That might be wrong, but how much it's worth as a collectible. You see what I'm saying? Like a first run print edition of The Wealth of Nations is probably worth a fraction of a penny in paper value. But collectible value, it's worth a lot more. Do you see what I'm saying? So future-based volume 83 will be worth X amount of dollars based on how much money it brings in, like a security. And then it will be worth extra if the placements and the PR made it a collectible edition, if you will. So that's my digression on NFTs. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to know about, because we could raise some money here to do some cooler stuff by putting out these NFTs. I want to know about that. That's what I want to know about. If you know about that, get in touch with me. That's what I want to know about. So anyway, now I want to talk about the difference between the entertainment business and the worm business. So I'm going to give a brief introduction to how and why I got in the worm business. Then we're going to talk about the difference, and then I think that's going to be it for this podcast, because this is going to be not long, but it's going to be a nice, healthy piece of content for everybody. So I really don't like thinking about this as content. It sounds dumb. So anyway, how did I get involved in worm farming? I wanted to do bees, but bees need a lot of land because you don't want anyone to get stung, like any random people that are on my property. So I have long-term rental properties, I have an Airbnb property, and I have the place where I live. It doesn't lend itself to beekeeping. I have some land I just bought out in the rural, but I'm not going to drive 50 minutes and back each way. See, I'm not even in LA anymore. I'm not going to drive 50 minutes each way. Like, that's normal in LA, right? Only to tend to some bees. I couldn't do the bees justice. So I started looking for something else. Worms, you could put under your sink in the bin. You could put outside in your yard in a bin in these Rubbermaid tubs. So I figured, okay, this might be something cool to do. So I was looking at some land, and I was looking at some other land where both pieces I had to drive past this. It's like this pizza place / convenience store / general store / bait shop that you see right before you get into the rural area of this area that I am investing in, right? So there's a little quaint downtown Main Street. Then you drive a little bit more. Then there's this general store, and then it's miles of farms and natural springs, like outdoorsy stuff. So I would drive back and forth from this place. It's a live bait. I said, one day I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to ask them if they need any worms, and that will help me determine whether to start a worm farm. If I go in there and they're like, a music licensee, hey, you need Future-Based Volume 8? No, not really. Or if they really need worms. You see the difference? So one day, Maserati Steve was coming in from Jacksonville. We're going to look at two homes in this neighborhood that I want to invest in. And I said, all right, I got my new place. I have room for worms because I was staying in my Airbnb place on and off, and I couldn't grow worms in an Airbnb. And I actually stopped doing the Airbnb for a month. I blocked out the calendar so we could do some general maintenance and stuff on the house. So that's where I was living after the holiday season. But in February, I needed to move to a place to accommodate my Airbnb bookings. I couldn't stay on my Airbnb property. So we're on the way to look at these homes, and I stopped in. I pulled into the live bait place. I walked in. There's some people in line. I waited in line until I was acknowledged by the owners. And I said, hello, I'm thinking of starting a worm farm. Would you need any worms? And they say, do you have a card? I said, no. They said, can you take down our phone number? What is your phone number? Yes, we need worms. We also need minnows and shiners. Can you get those too? I said, I don't know. They said, what kind of worms are you going to make? I said, I don't know. They're like, well, we need this and we need this type of worm, 2 types of worms, which happen to be, in general, the most common types of worms. They weren't asking for anything outlandish, right? So I said, wow, I got a great response. So I met Maserati Steve, and I said, man, I'm going to start a worm farm. So after we looked at these 2 homes, and as an aside, we didn't get either of the homes because they went really quick. They got snapped up, but there's a piece of land near the homes, which I might pick up, just as an aside. So we go back to town, because Maserati Steve had a couple of hours before he had to head back to Jacksonville. And we pulled into the gourmet restaurant of Chipotle to have lunch. And I said, I think there's 2 more stores on the way back from where we were to here that also have live bait. Let me give them a call real quick. See if they need any bait. So I called this other store, which is a national chain store, but it's out kind of like in the semi-rural area. And I said, hi, I'm thinking of starting a worm farm. Do y'all need any bait? And they're like, yeah. What are your prices? I'm like, I don't know. Called the other store. Hi, yeah, I'm thinking of starting a worm farm. Do you need any worms? And they're like, yeah. We generally buy worms for X amount for this, boo. How soon can you bring them in? I said, oh my God. So then I have a cousin who recently purchased a bait shop who I don't care if he's listening to this. I hope he's listening to this. He's a huge no George. He says no to everything. Huge no George, which has served him well throughout his life, but he's a no George. I'm a yes George. He's a no George. So I'm like, if I call this no George and this dude needs worms, I will start a worm farm today. So I called. I said, yo, I'm starting a worm farm. You need any worms? He's like, always. How many can you get? I mean, are you going to ship them or are you going to drive them down to the beach? Because he lives in South Florida. His shop's in South Florida. I'm in North Central Florida. Are you going to ship them or are you coming down? Can you bring them? I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a demand. There's a demand for worms. Why is there a demand for worms? Let's talk about it for a second. Because worms are like bullets. And fishermen are hunting in the water. Think about that. Fishermen are water hunters. But most of them don't shoot the fish. They use hooks. And to get the hook, they need bait or lure. Lure is synthetic. A bait is alive. It's a smaller insect or a smaller fish that attracts larger fish. Okay? So if you're a fisher person and you buy worms at the bait shop, by the pizza place bait shop, and you go fishing for a day, there's 3 things that could happen. You use all of your worms. You use some of them and you don't want to be saddled with worms, so you dump them out in the dirt and then they do their worms, they do their thing. Or you keep them in the refrigerator, or in case of a red wiggler or a European nightcrawler, you keep them room temperature, and you use them again. So only 1 out of those 3 outcomes do they not need as many worms. Okay, worms are like bullets. You really only use them once, right? Compare that with Future Base Volume 83. You can make an infinite number of copies of Future Base 83, right? But these worms, it's the opposite. And worms, the population of a worm colony can double every 3 months. So in 6 months, it quadruples. 9 months, it octuples. In 1 year, you get up to 12 times your worm colony. Now, that's if you really know what you're doing and keeping everything tip-top Magoo shape. Let's just say it goes up by 5. It goes 5 times. So the pound of worms you bought off of eBay for $40 now turns into $200 worth of worms in a year, and all you did was keep them alive, which for a red wiggler, I mean, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not rocket science. You see what I'm saying? Especially if you buy like a thermometer to put in your worm bin and some general worm husbandry skills. Okay? Now, that's one thing. Number two, worm poop, aka worm castings. Castings? I'm here for the costing? Not that kind of costing. Worm castings, okay? Sell for between 50 cents to $4 a pound. So their doo-doo sells between 50 cents to $4 a pound. Worms can eat up to their body weight in a day. Do the math on that. It takes between 1 to 3 months to harvest worm castings. I had my first casting harvest a couple of weeks ago. I went to some guy in the line at the post office when I was mailing out worms. I had a box that said live worms. I was selling some worms to somebody, off of eBay. And this guy's complaining, and he goes, "Oh, this line sucks." And it did. It was really long. Oh, this line. And he goes, "Hey, excuse me, are those live worms?" He knew they were live worms, but he just making conversation. I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, are you in this Facebook group, this local gardeners Facebook group?" I said, "No." He told me about it. I joined. And then there was also, this gardening group is so big, they have a separate group where you're just selling things. There's one group for general community stuff or free things or help and questions and meetups. Then they have a whole other Facebook group of just sales, like if you want to sell your stuff. So I joined that group. I said, "Everybody, I have worm castings." Yes, it's social media, but I have a separate account for that. I'm not looking at other ephemera, you know what I mean? If that's the right word. I had within 3 days, I had 27 likes on that post, so that keeps bumping it up. 2 customers, and I ran out of castings. So I don't even want to go on there and say, "Hey everyone, I have castings," because I don't. And then a few days later, a nice lady hit the group up and said, "Does anybody know where to buy worms? Is there anyone local worm farmers here?" And some people are saying go to Walmart, which is retail, but I can sell you wholesale because I don't have to ship the worms. I mean, they're right here. So I just commented on the post, "I have worms. Let me know if you need any." So it's a supply. If you're a music library or composer, you're one of many sellers in a small room of buyers. But a worm farmer, you're one of the only. Wait, what was it? If you're a musician, you're one of many sellers in a room full of buyers. If you're a worm farmer, you're one of a few sellers in a room full of buyers. Did I get that right? I hope I did. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of buyers. There's not so much sellers. That's not even taking into account the cold weather we had recently, which drove up the price of worms because they were harder to get. Because a lot of these worms, they don't ship in the cold. They'll get lethargic and maybe pass away. And for a while, the post office wasn't even sending worms. They wouldn't even let you send them. You can send a turkey through the post office? Could someone send me a turkey, like a live turkey? You could send a turkey. I don't know if y'all know that, but I've been looking up the post office rules because I don't want to get stuck at the post office arguing with a postal clerk about selling live worms. So evidently, during the bad weather, Texas freeze, the post office put a freeze, get it, on sending some livestock, and worms were one of them. And I tried to buy some worms from a worm grower, and it should have taken 3 days to get here. It took a week, but luckily the worms survived. So I might drive up to Georgia and buy 100 pounds of worms. Actually, 96 pounds of worms. 2 48-pound orders. 1 48-pound order of the red wigglers. 1 48-pound order of the European night crawlers. I have 3 pounds of African night crawlers on order. They should be here this week. And 3,000 African night crawler cocoons. I can't wait. So, how do you feed worms? Well, they could eat up to their body weight a day. So if I have 300, 500 pounds of worms, you need 300 to 500 pounds of food, right? You know what they eat? Shredded cardboard. What comes in cardboard? Your Amazon packages. You know what they eat? Used coffee grounds. Is there a coffee place that has a lot of locations around the world that might have some used coffee grounds? Maybe. Go to Starbucks at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and ask the people, hi, do you have any used coffee grounds? They'll either say yes, right over there, and you turn around and there's a big basket of silver cylindrical silo. Oh, that's kind of cool. Silver cylindrical silo looking things that are taped up with no price tag. Next time you're in a Starbucks, look for that. Those are used coffee grounds for free for farmers to take. I didn't know that. I heard you could get used coffee grounds at Starbucks. I walked in expecting to be in sales mode and negotiate these coffee grounds. But the clerk goes, oh, yeah, yes, sir, right there. And there's 4 bags. I took a bag. I got my Wormmobile, a.k.a. my new truck. I drove it 6 a.m. one morning, Starbucks drive-through, and I go, oh, I got a truck, but I'm going through the drive-through. How am I going to put these in the truck bed? And I said, hey, I'd like my whatever I ordered. And I said, can I get some of the coffee grounds too through the drive-through? And I drove up, and this clerk handed me like 40 pounds of coffee grounds in a giant bag. And that was one Starbucks. How many Starbucks are near you? Let's say 3. How many pounds of used coffee grounds can you get? Plus the cardboard, plus what do they call them? Brewers, those hip craft breweries they don't sell. They sell you beer, but what do they do with your used brewery grain? Do they pay someone to remove it? Are they lucky enough to have a farmer that came in and asked for it? I went into one, and they said, oh, well, we already give all of ours away to a farmer. I go, well, can I get some from my small worm farm? Well, they go, how much do you need? I go, I don't know. We'll start with like 5 gallons a week. And they're like, oh, yeah, for sure. Because they have such an abundance of these spent brewer's grains that 5 gallons a week is nothing, literally nothing. And then they said, since Florida is opening back up, they're getting more customers again, and they might have more grains than this farmer is willing to take. What do I mean willing to take? This farmer's livestock cannot eat enough grains that this brewery produces. And also, how do you move spent brewer's grains? It's not in the back of a Honda Civic. Case in point, there's a cow farm. It might be the biggest cow farm in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, is down the street from the piece of land I bought in the rural area. Okay, rural. So I called them and I said, yeah, I'm a new worm farmer, because I'm thinking of doing some outdoor windrows just to practice like my outdoor husbandry skills on my land. It's only an acre. I'm talking about it like it's, the Louisiana Purchase here. But although it might be Fulford's Folly, you get it? Which I think was Alaska. So what was I going to say? Oh, so they said, oh, sure, we have all the manure you need. There's a $10 loading fee. I go, really? They're like, yeah, pull up a dump truck to our site, and for $10, we'll get the loader out and load you up a truck full. And I said, well, what if I just need like 100 pounds? And the lady goes, oh, well, if you want to shovel it yourself, we won't charge you. But if you want to use our mechanical loaders, we got to charge. I'm like, yeah, that's more than fair. More than fair. Because if they didn't get people to take the manure, they'd have to pay to haul it away or start another facility that could process it. And, they'd probably make money doing that. But they're dairy farmers. They don't want to. That's like if you're a musician doing music, but you also need to make synthesizers. A lot of musicians could do that, but some don't. They want to be musicians. They don't want to make synthesizers on the side. It's two separate things. Although they're adjacent industries, they're not the same. Okay, I hope y'all didn't notice there's a little technical glitch. So I will pick up where I left off. What was I talking about? Synthesizers, music, I don't know. But we'll finish with the comparison of the entertainment business and the worm business. The worm business is keeping me in the entertainment business, and the entertainment business is keeping me in the worm business. I love both businesses. They both have their pros and cons. So a few years ago, I was at the YouTube space, for some event. And I saw somebody that I met once or twice, probably once before, had a little chit chat, added each other on Facebook, yada yada, didn't really know each other. So I walked over, we started talking. They introduced me to a friend of theirs. The friend says, what do you do? I told them I own a music library, I do sync licensing. What do you do? And they said, lots of things. I said, all right. And what lots of things means is they do nothing and have a trust fund. The one time I actually said, you have a trust fund, don't you? When someone said they do lots of things, the person actually had a trust fund. I felt bad for putting them on like that. So I stopped doing that. But rest assured, if someone goes, I do lots of things, when asked what they do, they probably have a trust fund. Anyway, and this other person said in the group that they do corporate events. They link up, like, let's say, for instance, Bud Light private party with, Run the Jewels performing or whatever, or Coconut Water with, Lupe Fiasco performing, things like that. Corporate sponsored events that have an entertainment aspect to it. So I said, oh, that's kind of cool. I know a lot of bands and DJs that I would like to have sync showcases for, but it would be great if we could get sponsorship to actually pay the DJs and get free booze and, have it like a real event, instead of me trying to shoehorn a DJ who makes $20,000 a night into like a sync showcase, which they don't get paid for. You know what I mean? Like they'll still do it probably, but it would be good to have the money aspect handled so they feel better about it and we could repeat it. We could do a bunch of different bands and have an ongoing series, right? So the person said, oh, that sounds great. Here's my phone number. Give me a call. Let's do something. So I call the person. They go, oh, now's not really a good time. Can you call me Thursday at 12:10 p.m.? Okay, which is generally a brush off in my experience. So I call them, Tuesday or whatever day and time I said, 12:10 p.m. And they're like, oh yeah, hi. So what did you want to do again? Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I'll have 20 gallons on pump 3. Like they're at the gas station talking to me, right? I'm like, well, I wanted to do this. You said you could do a corporate sponsored entertainment event. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. But call these other 2 people; they might help you. And I was like, well, first of all, I don't need help. You said you were interested in doing it like a partnership. I'm not. All right. So I call person number 1, who I've never met before. Oh, that sounds great. My event space is here, which is an hour each way from where I lived. So come down, we'll talk about it. This sounds great. We really like to get something going. So I drive an hour each way. I meet with the person. Oh, this sounds great. Here's our event space. We tried to do this a few months ago with an act and it fell through. And I knew who the act was. Like I knew the act's manager, and I should have just stopped right there and asked about it, but the manager about it, but I didn't. My fault. We'll do this. Here's where we'll have the photo booth. Here's where we'll have the stage. The sponsors could come in over here. This guy knew all the logistics. Woo, woo, woo. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to email you a scope of work and some proposed dates. You talk to the bands and we'll get some dates lined up. I'm like, hell yeah. We'll get some bands. We'll get some DJs. We'll get a bunch of people. We'll get an open bar. Maybe I'll film it for my YouTube channel. We'll get all these cool people and, whatever. So I don't hear from him for a week. I call the guy back. He's like, yeah, who's, oh, yeah, I'll do it. Let me call you back. Hangs up. I never heard from him again. So I go to the other guy that this person that I met at the YouTube space asked me or told would be interested. So I drive to this person's facility. Also, well, I won't say an hour. Let's say 45 minutes away. I'll give some leeway there. Oh, we'd love to do it. Here's where we'll put the bands. Here's the sponsorships we've had in the past. We'll put the DJ here. Boom. We'll hang the sponsor banner there. We'll have the red carpet here. We'll have the auxiliary video studio here. We'll have the live switcher here for a live stream. We can stream it on this channel here. We got it set up. Yada, yada, yada. Let me see if I can find the email this guy sent me. So I'm there and I say, let's try doing this. Let's do a podcast from your facility. See how it goes. And if it works out, we'll do something bigger. Oh yeah, that sounds great. And I said I could bring in some producers that I know that are work with these big acts, J-Lo, Justin Bieber, yada yada. We'll have a podcast. We'll film it here. We'll put it out. And then if you like it and I like it, we'll do bigger things. Yeah, sounds great. So I emailed the gentleman and I said, can we get into can we lock down a date to get into your facility for 30 minutes, knock out a super quick podcast? And he says, no. I'm reading this verbatim. No. Also, I got to check you before you start thinking about selling your business to sponsor, name here. My partner has worked long and hard to develop that relationship, so it can't feel like you're coming in and trying to steal our corporate client. That said, there could be a unique partner approach with you as a host, but let's see what happens first. Not trying to kill any ideas, just want to let you know about the playing field before you try and sack the quarterback, because I got some linebackers keeping an eye on him. What the fuck does that mean? I hope I get a a hey man email if this person listens to my show. You want me to read that back? No. Also, I got to check you before you start thinking about selling your business to the sponsor. My partner has worked long and hard to develop that relationship, so it can't feel like you're coming in trying to steal our corporate client. That said, there could be a unique partner approach with you as a host, but let's see what happens first. Not trying to kill any ideas, just want to let you know about the playing field before you try and sack the quarterback, because I got some linebackers keeping an eye on him. What the hell does that even mean? Someone tell me. There could be a unique partner approach with you as a host, but let's see what happens first. Happens with what? That's what I asked. Let's get in and see what happens. And that's the email I get. What does that even mean? I said, can we get into the studio for 30 minutes? I want to do a quick 10-minute interview that you and I, meaning this gentleman, can pitch to the sponsor to get something going. What does that mean? That's an email I got. Right? That's the entertainment business. It's all ephemeral. Let's see what happens first. Just quarterback talking about sports. Linebackers keeping an eye on them. I mean, at least he got the linebacker right. I mean, linebackers are offense, as far as I could remember. You know what I'm saying? What does that mean? Let's do a quick 10-minute interview. Let me get in there for 30 minutes, do a quick 10-minute interview with my multi-platinum producer who can make more money sitting at his studio doing tracks than coming to meet with me at this place. He'd do it because he believes in me. And we could show this to the sponsor, and I could host it. That's exactly what I said to this gentleman. And he writes back, well, I got to check you. There might be something you could do where you host. That's what I said. So that's what I get for driving 45 minutes each way, plus an hour each way to that other guy who I never heard from again. I was at the YouTube space minding my business, and that leads into an hour each way, 45 minutes each way in a big dog and pony show rigmarole. By the way, the bands that I have, I mean, y'all know which bands I pitched for Syncs. A lot of them are pretty freaking big, right? Yes, they were bigger in the 90s, but they could still draw a crowd big enough for like an event space. They used to play arenas. Now they play they could draw 1,000 people. They used to draw more than 5,000, 10,000, I think. Yeah, right? At least in the big cities. So anyway, that's the entertainment business. Compare that to the worm business. The other day, I went into a local market, and if you know about Gainesville, you could deduce where these places are. No problem. I was on my way to a burger pop-up that the Brio Boys produce. It was a little early. So I was like, let me stop into this market, see if I could get some of their rotting fruits and vegetables for my worm farm. I go to the market. I ask to speak to the owner. I speak to the owner. I said, hi, I have a small worm farm. Can I ask what you do with your old fruits and vegetables? I'd love to grab some if I could. And the person goes, we have a pig farmer that comes in here and takes everything. We have a contract with him. I don't have time to be sorting fruits and vegetables from everything else for you. I wish I could help you, but no. So go. Okay. So I sell my worms and my worm poop to a feed and seed store 1/4 mile from that location. Remember that. So that store, I guess that person was having a bad day. They were very nasty. I mean, I didn't know garbage was such a hot button issue. But they remind me of that email that I got that I just read to y'all. So I could pull out of that parking lot. I could go literally west on the street, go through, I think, two stoplights, and hit a supermarket, and I could ask them for their rotting fruits and vegetables. I go back the other way, east and south, to another supermarket, ask for their vegetables and fruits. I go way southwest by the interstate and hit Whole Foods. I don't think Jeff Bezos is collecting the rotting fruits and vegetables yet, right? Maybe if he buys my worm farm, he might someday. But I could ask 3 stores, 4. I could cut north on the second stoplight, which I mentioned, and hit another supermarket and ask them for their fruits and vegetables. Or I could just keep going to Starbucks and getting 100 pounds of coffee grounds a day. I'm thinking ahead because my worms, to get the good casting, you need a variety of foods. You can't just, worms get palate fatigue too. They just can't eat one thing. So I sell my worms and my castings to a feed and seed store north of the market that got upset with me. Now, that market also sells a lot of greenery and plants and stuff, yada, yada. You know, they sell things to farmers. I think they have some feed and some seed there too. So if that market ever asks me for my castings, I don't think they'll buy worms. They'll probably buy castings. I could say no, because I went in there very humbly asking for rotting food, not rotten, but rotting. And the owner just, I didn't like their vibe. They seemed super stressed and couldn't be bothered with me. And I don't want to do business with a market like that. Now contrast that in the entertainment business, and I'm talking to the licensees too, because we're all in this. This isn't adversarial, but if you're talking to someone in the entertainment business and they're in a position of power over you, and they go, "Hey, you know what? Go fuck yourself." Oh yeah, go fuck my. That's funny. Yeah, I will. Yeah, right. You kind of take it, and I'm sure a lot of us have taken shit one way or another throughout our careers, you know. But in the worm business, you guys, no, I'm not selling to you. I'm gonna sell. A quarter mile away, there's a feed and seed store. We already talked about prices. Everything's cool. They write me a check on the spot. I get it, and I go cash it. So why do I need to sell to y'all? Right? And if that farmer ever sells their farm or gets another source that's closer to their farm of food, and that store is stuck with all these rotting vegetables, I'm not going to take them. Why? I go to Starbucks and get the coffee grounds. I could go to these other supermarkets. Hopefully one will sell to give their fruit and veggies away. If not, I'll go to a nursing home or a school or the county jail or a prison. There's a state prison where they got old Sparky. That's the Florida electric chair. I think it's the only one in the state. Maybe an hour away. Now, I'm not saying that's something I want to do, but I can do it for my worms. See what I'm saying? It's such a difference. Like, I'm not working with them. And I would say I'm never going in that market again, but I've been in there maybe 4 times in my life. It's not something, and it was around when I used to live here back in 2000. So it's not a place that I just don't go there because there's all these other places on the way. Compare that to entertainment business when, you know, people that I talk to, I'm not saying what position they're in, but like I see me out of the corner of their eye at these events, and they see me, they stop and they go the other way. And then when they want something from me at another event, they go, "Hey, man, I haven't seen you in years. How are you? Listen, I was wondering if..." I was like, "No, I see you from the corner of my eye. Look at me and go the other way." Unless the person I was talking to, they didn't want to see. But I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt. It's been years. Yeah, I've been emailing you twice a year for 3 years. You don't respond. You see me, you look away. And then now, since you want something from me, hey, great. I don't do that in the worm business. I don't even do that in the entertainment business anymore. But in the worm business, it doesn't happen. And that's why the worm business helps me with doing music, and the music business helps me with worms. Because in the worm gig, it's more of a science. It's less of an art. You know, when I'm doing music, I can say, let's see what happens when you plug a guitar into a vocoder and plug in another instrument into the vocoder, into the microphone jack, and let's just see what happens. In the worm business, yeah, let's see what happens. Let's see if we could feed our worms this other food source, and then you could have a bunch of dead worms. And you should know that worms don't like onions. Well, let's see what happens. Why would you want to do that? You're hurting your worms. See what I'm saying? So it's a difference. It feeds off of one another. So I'm saying to y'all, if you're doing music and you don't have a non-ephemeral hobby or something, do something gardening or something like that. You know, it doesn't have to be worms, but I do advocate growing wormeries because some of the biggest wormeries are in rural Mexico, are in Bangladesh, are in the Philippines, you know, where people, their crop yields, if their crop yields are bad, it could literally mean life or death to some people. And I know it sounds unfortunate to say that, but it's true. I can't mince words. So that's why they grow worms, to use their poop as a soil amendment to, if their tomatoes, if their turnips are 33% bigger with the castings than without, they could eat more and they could have a healthy diet. You know, so that's where the worm castings, not those castings come into play. You see what I'm saying? So I hope y'all like this episode. I know y'all like it a lot when I do stuff that's my truth, quote unquote. So I did with that email. If you're the guy that wrote the email, hey man, no disrespect, but you wrote it. It's in writing. It's timestamped, date stamped, and you know, I hope all is well. So that's it for this episode. I will catch you next time. Stay safe. Write some music. Do some music. Grow some worms, and I'll talk to you soon.